Grace. Incredible grace. It's still morning. Good morning. Good morning. Text somebody, let them know I'm on. The devil has already got started with me, but sue me. Grace, 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 grace. Good morning, y'all. What's up? Let's get some people on here so I can help you. Got some information for you, some things to think through and talk about. I am Ryan Ford. Don't go anywhere. I'm calling you immediately. I love you. Prophet Elaine, grace to you. Super grace. Crisante, hey, what's up, man? Corey, not Topanga too early. You don't even know what I'm about to say. I mean, you could be right. From Scotland, hey, I've never been there. Grace, waking up sick, be healed in Jesus' name. 'Tis your portion. Hello, everybody. Prophet Angelo, I hope to see you this weekend. You need perfect attendance. LB Enterprise, what's going on? Hey, from the Bronx, New York, what's up? From New Zealand, man, what's going on? Dante Christian, what's up? Hey, Norwood, what's going on, Elder? So good to see all of you. So good to see all of you. All right, we got about 300 people on. I want about 500 on here. So go ahead and send out a text. I don't know why y'all won't set your notifications up so that you will know that I am on. I think I've been shadow banned. I got a lot more followers than what's showing up on my IG, but I'm working on fixing that as my movies come out and make sure that it really reflects what I'm doing and what I'm building. What's up, Pastor Josh? How are you? Updates everywhere. Hey, it is so good to see you. I am glad that all of you woke up this morning, and I'm so glad that I woke up this morning because I didn't deserve it. But it is because of the Lord's mercies that we're not consumed. So it is so good to see all of you. I got a lot of stuff going on and working on a lot of stuff. Today, I intend to be productive. Pray for me because I intend to be productive. I'm going to try to say good morning to a lot more of you before I get into what I have for you today. I can't go on this evening necessarily, but so because of that, I want to come on right now and share some things with you, give you some tools, give you some thinking points, help you with your journey. Hello, Father from Africa. That's an honor. That's an honor. Hey, what's up, Etienne Lashley? Oh, yeah. I'm glad about it. Man, listen, I'm old and new. I believe in the power of redemption and the blood, and every time I wake up, first thing out of my mouth is thank you, Jesus. I know what was after me. Great afternoon from NY Charlotte. I'll be there soon. I'll be there soon. Just answer this. Is what you're going to say good news? What I'm going to say is going to put some pressure on you. Hallelujah. All right. Yesterday, Prophet Harrison, I love you, son. Yesterday, we hit something. Ricky Holloway, what's going on? I love you. Kenza, I love you. Elder Desi, I love you. I don't know why I do this with these titles. Kyle, are you at work or are you at home? Let me know. Yesterday, I started something about the subject of depression. And my phone, my email, my text messages, when I tell you I've not stopped getting notices and all kinds of stuff, I am Stacks, man, I'm at work. It's okay. Come on, take your pen out. I got some stuff for you. About that issue, we unpacked a lot about heaviness. We unpacked a lot about chemical instability, character instability. We unpacked a lot last night. And it seemed as if there was a lot of people that had not considered that they could possibly be battling either heaviness or that they could possibly be dealing with and on again, off again, wrestle with depression. We talked about a lot. We talked about gifted people and depression. We talked about influential people and depression, intellectual people or intelligent people and depression, smart people and depression. We talked about a lot of that stuff. What I learned is that is a real issue. There's a lot of people that avoid it. There's a lot of people that evade it, that try not to think about it, that don't necessarily want to, I guess, claim or label or recognize that that could be an issue for them. We talked about sadness for no reason. We talked about how the supporters or the onlookers should be positioned and postured, the types of questions they should ask, the types of ways they should avail themselves, and the types of things that they should avoid doing. We did a lot. So here's part 2. Before I go into this, I'd like to invite you to the prophetic revival this Friday at 310 Riverside Drive in New York City. If you ain't got nothing to do, use your points, use your credits, get you a flight, and let's come out and see what the Lord has to say to you concerning you. And it's going to be amazing. Here is part 2. We're dealing with this. Sheldon Steele, what's going on, man of God? There are several categories and several classes of depression and or Kwame on standby and or depressive reasonings or depressive issues that you need to consider when you're dealing with you and your life and where you are. So this is you versus you. Depression is not only for those that have lost a loved one or, buried somebody. It can happen in different seasons or phases of life. Life is about seasons and phases. And if you are not prepared for a certain season or a certain phase of life, what will happen is an unexpected emotional reaction to what's before you, what you're facing, what you have to choose, what you have to decide, what you have to commit to, what you have to be a part of. Okay, so when understanding or trying to decipher or discern life, you need to understand seasons and phases. I want to just set that as a premise. It's about season and phases. You can't sprint this thing out. If you're seriously pursuing your potential and you're seriously committed to your destiny, you've got to understand seasons and you've got to understand phases. You've got to understand that there are purposes and that there are plans of God for every decade of your life. You will be one way in your 20s. You will be one way in your 30s. You will be one way in your 40s. You will be one way in your 50s. There will be different achievements, goals, accomplishments, desires, passions, visions, that will stir in you depending upon where you at. But to accurately or adequately measure yourself and to be fair to yourself, understand that life is about seasons and relationships are about seasons. And approaches are about seasons. You have to have an understanding of them. But because life is about seasons and phases, there are certain things that you can prepare for, and there are certain things that you cannot prepare for. Now, this is why I want to talk to you about depressive methodology or depressive issues or categories, because all depression is not equal and all depression is not the same. Okay, so if you wrestle this, if you battle this, if you minister to this, these are things that you need to know. I have outlined a couple of depressive types, depressive issues, depressive items that you may need to be looking for or that you may need to be aware of in order for you to inform your support systems and in order for you to know what to do to yourself. When I'm experiencing a depressive moment, and yes, I have authority. Yes, I am anointed. Yes, I preach. You're not going to out-preach me. Yes, I prophesy. Yes, I have dreams. I have visions. I talk to angels. I deal with devils. But I also have depressive moments. And part of what I do, just as an exercise for me in a depressive moments, is I externalize. I verbalize. If I notice that I don't have the energy for a day or the energy for a moment, I say things out of my mouth. This is me. This is how I handle it. I say, you will get up. You will rule this day. You will accomplish. You will achieve. You will rise in strength and power. You will not be distracted, or you will not allow room for discouragement. So this is how I literally wake up. I'm not even making it up. I'll wake up out of my bed if I'm laying in my room, or if I'm in my den, or if I'm in my basement. I'll wake up from sleep and I'll start talking to myself in the same way y'all sing to yourself in the shower. I'll talk to myself and I'll say, in the name of Jesus, you will conquer this day. You will return the email, the emails you need to return. You will fulfill the deadlines you need to fulfill. You will not allow this day to pass you and fail. You will do this. I talk to myself. We have a whole revelation that David gives us about encouraging yourself, hallelujah, in the Lord. Encouraging yourself in the Lord. That's not just looking in the mirror, giving yourself a Hallmark card. That's instructing the soul, being able to steer the conversation of the heart, and being able to make sure that you hold yourself accountable to what you need to do beyond how you feel. Because here is the real issue. There's going to be days, there's going to be times, there's going to be situations, there's going to be issues that you need to do that you don't feel like doing. And a real strong key to understanding depression is you may need to do what you don't want to do, and you may have to do what you don't feel like doing, but you've got to do something or establish a strategy or an approach to do what you don't feel like you have to do, because life is not about your feelings. Your feelings have a degree of ignorance. There are things that your feelings don't know. There are things that your feelings don't understand. There is a veil on the feelings. And so what you do is you never want to allow your feelings to sit in the driver's seat of your life. My model child, Chris, you owe me a call. Your feelings don't need to ever sit in the driver's seat of your life. Think about how many mothers, I hope y'all stand with me. Think about how many mothers, how many fathers, how many executives, how many leaders, how many whatever have to do what they don't necessarily feel like doing. And they can't get management over their feelings, their sensory selves, their immediate response or reaction to that. It is important to know that you can control your feelings. You can dictate them. You can lead them. Praise God. You can instruct them. Your feelings should not control you. I want to set this up as a preliminary framework. There's so many people that live in the realm of their sensory selves. They feel away. There's something that the Apostle Paul says is really quick if you're reading too fast, and if you're not looking at it intentionally or critically. Paul, when talking about the armor of God, and this has nothing to do with the categories of depression I'm about to give you, but Paul, when talking about arming yourself with the armor of the Lord, the sword of the Spirit, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, one of the things that we don't delve enough into is when he says to have your loins girded about with truth. Let's do some work. You're on here. We need to investigate and evaluate ourselves. Your loins girded with truth. Now, the biblical phrase and explanation for loins is anything that causes to come to be or produces or fertilizes or starts or initiates. Because of that, Paul compares the loins, the ability to birth, the ability to give out, to produce, to cause to be, to cause to come forth. He contrasts that to a messaging system. He says that you need to have your loins girded about with truth. And truth is about a message, an opinion, a narration, a concept. That means that there is a such thing as lying loins. If I have to gird myself and my loins with truth, that means that my loins can lie. That means that there are things that may be talking to you, okay, communicating to your heart, to your mind, even from and through your body, that may be falsely informing you based upon what your circumstance, situation, environment, setting is. All right. So feelings lie, desires lie, the heart is deceitful. You got all these risks around what you take your messages and your instructions from. So you need to consider that when you're thinking about how to conquer and get the victory over your depression. This is why I'm hitting this, is because I believe you've got to be taught out of depression. I don't believe it's just a matter alone of the laying on of hands or the altar call. That is very possible. Please, I don't want to ever disrespect that. That's very possible. But in order to get consistent victory out of depression, you've got to be taught out of it. You've got to be coached out of it. Dr. Perry, my assistant, called me about you. He's going to be contacting you today. And so I've identified several categories of things that I think you should be focused on, meditating on, aware of, so that you are sensitive to when you might be submitting to or yielding to a power, a force, an energy that's not yourself, that's robbing you and ruining you of being able to produce at your greater self or your grander self or your more profound self. All right. So I hope you got your notes out. Let's go. We're going to deal with depression 2.0. All right. If you are taking notes, I want you to let me know in these comments and say, I've got my pen. Tyler Parker, that's what's up. Lady T, Tashira, hey, honey. Let me know you got your pen before I start. Let me know you got it. O'Neill W, let's go. Let's go. Because I'm about to get you. And I'm going to leave it up. Again, I told you I'm about to start some new things. And these types of sessions are going to be a lot more exclusive in the next several weeks. But I want to give it to you now while it's wide and broad and open and free and all of that. Good. You got your pen. Aisha Matthews, let's go. Miss Mariah, let's go. Astacia Evans, let's go. Daddy's Girl Forever, let's go. I am Michael Wilson. All right. I'm going to give you several categories of depression and depressive items and issues that you need to be aware of in yourself, and possibly for those that you are supporting or those that you are in relationship with, that you may or may not recognize. Sam Collier, I love you, man. And these are going to be uncommon issues. Everybody thinks depression is just about death alone or about defeat or reverse activity in life. And that's not true. Depression can come in a life, and a person can experience depression for a myriad of reasons. I'm going to give you some of them that I've identified, and I'm going to try to explain them to the best of my ability. But you're going to have to take notes and evaluate that for yourself. All right. I'm going to give you these categories of depression, and I'm going to break them down. Maybe I'll get to talk to some people and see what they say. Number 1. Tanky, what's up? You just left trial for Kevin. It's 2023. Jesus. I didn't know we were still in court for that. I hope everything went well. Okay, number 1, there was a phrase called compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue. If you're paying attention to what I'm saying, write the phrase compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue. There are those that work in certain fields, that live under certain circumstances, that overextend, overinvest, overgive, over risk, over invite, over allow. And there are those that have compassion careers. So when you deal with psychologists, social workers, sometimes teachers, medical doctors, pastors, life coaches, after school coaches, athletic coaches, any career lane or any career aisle that gives you responsibility for people that you don't have to take responsibility for, that you're allowing your life to be opened up to other people's lives and their decisions. In compassion fatigue, there are certain areas of risks. I hope you're following this. In compassion fatigue, one of the risks you have is numbness. One of the other risks you will have is desensitivity. Detectives, for example, many people would look at a police officer or a detective and not know that they could be exposed to compassion fatigue. But after you've seen so many deaths, so many murders, after you've looked at so many dead bodies, so many catastrophic outcomes in a life, something about the humanity in you starts to change. Something about the sensitivity in you starts to change. And you get used to something that you shouldn't really get used to. And then you go home with a new robotic emotional set and a robotic emotional framework. And you don't know that that is impacting you in that way. Compassion fatigue is about those that really do have an honest motive, an honest intent towards helping, aiding, guiding, walking alongside, and it gets taken advantage of. It gets used. It gets abused. It gets overlooked. It gets unseen. It gets uncelebrated. And what happens is the most compassionate people, the people with the most compassionate depth, end up becoming evil during a time of conflict. Oh, I'm teaching real good. Maybe I should have saved this for the evening. My son's got a basketball game, so I can't do it. The nicest people, the world's grandest hearts. I mean, just they would give you the clothes off their back, the shoes off their feet. They would make sure you got somewhere to live, somewhere to stay. They'll pay for your weddings. I've lived it. Can you? Never mind. They'll send you on vacations. They'll give you checks. They'll do that. And that's the way God made them. As a person with a gift and a ministry of compassion, I firsthand understand this, because what happens is you can't fight your design. I'm talking about depression. So it's almost as if you get mad at yourself, you get mad at your heart, you get mad at your passion, your zeal to help, to aid, to heal, to nurture, to partner with, to affixate, to stand in the gap, to make sure that the need is met, that the cry is answered, that the nightmare is turned. And then you don't get a thank you. You get slapped in the face, spit on the face. The next shiny thing appears and they move on from that. And this can happen romantically. This can happen platonically. This can happen ministerially. This can happen in professional workplaces. But a part of what happens with compassion fatigue is you end up going to polar extremes. So you end up being extraordinarily generous, extraordinarily available, extraordinarily willing. And then when the right button is pushed, or when the right thing is done, or when the right person says the right thing, you go to another extreme and you become helter-skelter. You become Hannibal Lecter. You get evil. And I'm going to tell you why. People that are compassionate are normally suppressed. We're talking about depression. People that are compassionate run the risk of being suppressed. And because they're self-sacrificing, they're going to push down what they feel, push down what they need, push down what they are afraid of, push down what they see, push down what they thought would happen, push down what they thought should be in order for another person's outcome to be good. But the problem is when you strike that match or you hit that chord, you're going to get an explosion. And the problem with that is in compassion fatigue, when a compassionate person snaps, you're going to get not only what their issues are with you, you're going to reap and you're going to hear and you're going to experience a lot of their anger, a lot of their frustrations with stuff that ain't got nothing to do with you. You're going to get their anger with interest. So that's another form of depression, is compassion fatigue. I gave too much. I give too much. I was used. I was raped. I was abandoned. I was walked over. Because of my heart, I created opportunities. All of that type of thing. There's a sign on my forehead that says, walk in my life and use me. Now, I've seen this a lot in romantic situations, but I've also seen it in ministerial situations, or I've also seen it in friendship situations. You have a friend in a friendship cluster, in a friendship group. There's going to be one friend that's going to be really generous. They're going to pay for the bills, host the parties, plan the events, plan the trips. They're going to be the one that gives. And when that giver is surrounded by a bunch of takers, what's going to happen is when that giver runs out and runs out of gas, they're going to become evil. They're going to become bitter. They're going to say things about you and to you that you can't handle, and then the relationship is going to come to ruin. So one form of depression is compassion fatigue. Number 2, are y'all still with me? Give me some thumbs up if I'm helping you or convicting you. Okay, number 2 is transition exhaustion. Transition exhaustion. Another form of depression, or another category of depression, is transition exhaustion, when things are consistently changing, rotating, evolving. Now, while change is a part of life and evolution is something that should be desired by everybody, it's not as comfortable to everybody depending upon where they are emotionally and in their maturity. Everybody is not as mature as what they appear. Some people dress well and they're in arrested development. Some people speak well and they don't have the emotional bandwidth to handle change and or conflict, or to make conflict matter to the future of a relationship or a dynamic. And so in transition exhaustion, there are people that have a lot of consistent or back-to-back changes, one city to the next, one friend group to the next, one church to the next, one environment to the next, one career to the next, all of that stuff. And they just get tired of having to rotate. People don't always have the emotional skills to handle rotation well. Now, this is something that is inevitable, but it can cause depression if you don't think about how transition impacts you. Some people shrink back, some people do nothing, and some people embrace it. 3 things. Some people shrink back, some people do nothing, and some people embrace it. The good thing to do about transition exhaustion is embrace transition. Grab a hold of it and make it make sense to you and make it profitable to you. The wrong reactions are to do nothing or to shrink back. Because if you shrink back, the grandest risk is going to be time. It's going to be mental space and mental and emotional real estate. If you stay still, what's going to happen is, watch me, everybody that stagnates and makes the choice to stand still will become poisonous to everybody around them. When you stagnate and choose to stay still, you become toxic to everyone around you. You are only as beneficial, you are only as helpful, you are only as productive in our relationship and in our life if you're making the commitment to do the work yourself and to go forward. Should you choose to stay in the same place, what you're going to do is oppress everybody around you. I'm going to tell you why. Because if you stay in the same place and we start changing and we start growing and we start reaching and we start moving, you're going to discourage us. You're going to abandon us. You're going to stonewall. You're going to make it seem like our progress is offensive, that our movements is an insult to you or an attack on you, just because we decided to move forward and you decided to stay still. And then you're going to probably move into a situation of manipulation where you're going to become a subconscious manipulator. And there are people that are manipulative and they don't know it. There are people that are manipulative and they don't realize it. There are people that are manipulative and they don't see themselves in that way. There are some manipulators in your life that have good intent. Go ahead and give me the seed you would give your therapist, humbly speaking. Every manipulator doesn't wake up and decide to be a monster. Sometimes they just have emotional, relational, and mental needs that they don't know how to articulate and or express. So what they do is they do nothing and they cause you to overextend and overreach beyond that you have the ability or the energy to do and to be. So in transition exhaustion, what you need to do is express and externalize. Someone in transition needs to express and they need to externalize. Externalization is this: I'm going to take the conversations I've had in my mind, in my heart, the desires, the things that's going on in me, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to externalize it. Can I be disappointed? Probably. Can I be let down? There's a chance of that. But I'm not going to let the likelihoods of those things happening change my desire to get it out, externalize it. Once you've externalized it to a support system, what happens is you give it a framework of accountability. I can say whether or not you failed me or didn't love me or didn't commit to me or wasn't reaching for me if I externalize it. But here's the problem. Many of you watching me that are dealing with depression, you are absolutely guilty of dealing with or having conversations in telepathy. And there are things that you desire, and there are things that you want, and there are things that you need that are unspoken, unsaid, and unheard. And so you want people to read your mind. You want people to understand your thoughts. But if you don't externalize it, if you don't vocalize it, we have no real category or no real framework or no real outline on what support looks like for you. And then you get mad at me for a conversation you didn't have with me. You get offended with me for a desire you never expressed, and then you abandon and tear and ruin and rip a relationship that could have been beneficial to you because you wanted me to read your mind, because you did not have the bravery, the brevity, the consistency, or you didn't want to risk getting it out of your head and having that conversation aloud. That's very key to transition exhaustion. I hope that meant something to you. Okay, we're dealing with depression and the subjects of depression. All right, the next area or the category of depression that is a strong possibility and probability for a lot of you, particularly after going through what we went through in 2020 and after we've gone through and what we dealt with after the pandemic and all that stuff, is career crisis. Career crisis. Career crisis. You may or may not acknowledge this, but there may be a lot about your 9 to 5 or the way you get paid or the way you get fed that might be depressing you. Maybe you don't have a 9 to 5. Maybe you work remote. Maybe you studied one thing and you got a degree in one thing and you end up getting hired to do another, or contracted to do another, or were forced to do another. Maybe you are in a transit career, like a waiter or a waitress or a beautician or a barber or a masseuse or something like that. In career crisis, what happens is you don't necessarily like your job. You don't necessarily like what you do, but you need it for money. And you don't realize that that area of your life is impacting other areas of your life. I have never met somebody in a career crisis that was not being destructive, sick, confused, lazy about their relationships. A person in a career crisis runs the risk of not being available to show up in their other relationship commitments. I know you don't think that the two are connected, but if you are in a career crisis, you're probably not showing up as your full self in other relationships. I'm going to tell you why. You don't realize, oh God, I hope I'm helping you, how many hours of your day you spend in and toward the direction of your career. Whether you're in school, whether you are studying for something or working for something, or you do something on the side, or you have a 9 to 5, or you are the guy or the gal in charge, you don't realize that if you're unhappy or discontent or frustrated with that it might be impacting you in other areas of your life. You might be being a bad husband, a bad wife, a bad friend, a bad associate, because you're frustrated with what you consider is the conveyor belt of your resource and the conveyor belt of how you live 9 to 5 or day to day. So you devote a large part of your day to your career. And because of that, if your career is crushing you, devaluing you, making you feel like you're not worth it, or that you made the wrong decision, or that you were forced into a situation just so you could have some hot dogs and some hamburgers, but it wasn't necessarily aiding or helping, what you see or what you feel about life or where you should be going in life. So a lot of people are in depression because of a career crisis. And the real truth is you should choose your calling over your career. When you choose your calling, then you're choosing your makeup, your design, your nature, your passion, your pain, your burden, and then it'll end up paying you. It'll end up paying you because you're only excellent at what you're willing to cry about. You're only excellent at what you're willing to lose sleep for. If you're not willing to lose sleep over sales or shoes or car lotting, then what that is a 9 to 5. That's a 9 to 5 that's just supposed to pay your bills. But something can pay your bills and not necessarily be your purpose. Babe, say hi. Honey, say hi.
Hey.
I come against you. You see rebellion in the earth? Anyway, there's 9 to 5s that pay your bills but don't speak to your purpose. And this is the real issue. You're going to reach a critical point, a critical season, a critical area of your life where paying bills is going to get boring. I'm talking to about 300 of you that are sick of just paying bills. Paying bills gets boring. It gets mundane. It gets redundant. It gets repetitive. And what happens is, Apostle K is a mood. Everybody loves to use her for rebellion. Just don't follow orders at all. Yeah, so the 9 to 5 issue is a real thing. Your career crisis could be changing you as a person. Now, there may be people, again, that don't realize that they're changing or that they're mutating as people, but it could really be that their career crisis has started to do a thing to them. And because it's starting to do a thing to them, what's going to start going down is energy. It's going to energy, focus, concentration, investment, sacrifice. All of that stuff is going to change and decrease if you are in a career crisis. Now, I'm going to put a caveat here before I go on to my next stuff. A lot of you chose careers out of pressure. You never, ever choose a career out of pressure. You don't do it. Peer pressure, family pressure, social pressure, cultural pressure. You don't choose a career out of pressure. What you know about your calling will reveal what you know about how you were crafted, right? And so you need to pursue that looks like your design and your makeup. What pisses you off? What makes you angry? What are you willing to wake up early to do? What are you willing to lose sleep to do? You choose your career based upon that. You don't choose your career over a trend. Everybody wants to do this. Everybody wants to do that. Everybody's going into this. Let's Airbnb. Let's learn how to cut hair. Listen, you can have as many side gigs as you want. I'm talking to you about depression. You can have as many side gigs as you want. Listen, I am an ambidextrous man. Listen, your boy is going to find a way to make money come what may. I'm going to have thousands of businesses and ways. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I want all them routes and ways and paths, all kinds of money. But that ain't my career. That's not where I devote my dominant concentration and energy. And that's not why I shape my discipline. Because here's the issue. When you choose the right career path and the right career choice, it is an alignment of your disciplines. You align your disciplines and your studies to the thing that you ultimately want to do and the thing you ultimately want to become. So this career crisis. All right. Can you handle more? It's about 400 of you on. Can you handle more? We're talking about depression. Okay. The next one that we need to talk about is friendship failure. Friendship failure. Friendship failure. There is power. There is strength. There is help. There is hope. There is safety in healthily, intentional friendship. And there is a lot of people that's watching me right now that's depressed because of the absence of friendship. What I'm basically doing is giving you a glossary to interpret last night's teaching and to understand and apply this to your day-to-day life right now. Friendship is a desire of every human heart. We were created for relationship and intimacy, to know and to be known. And when people don't have rightly or rightfully designed friendships, what ends up happening is people become their own friends. And while that's not wrong or negative necessarily, what ends up happening is if you are your only friend, you're going to become a narcissist. You're going to become someone that worships your own opinion, your own way, your own path, your own purpose. And there is no such thing as a narcissist that is not oppressive. You're going to make victims. You're going to push people away. You're going to suppress people in their own identity. You're going to silence their ability to help you. And so you can't be your own friend. I think you should love yourself. The Bible says to love yourself. But I think there's a difference between loving yourself and worshiping yourself. You could be wrong. You could not be seeing things the right way. You could have a blind spot. You could not be considering every angle of your approach to a thing or your way in a thing. I don't think you could be a good wife and have no friends. Because everybody wants to be a wife and don't want to be a daughter. Everybody wants to be a wife and don't know how to be a sister. There are people that want to hurry up and be a husband to achieve and prove to their past that they're right, and they just skip right past sonship and friendship. I acquiesce. But friendship is a training mechanism for growing in love and for pursuing a 1 Corinthians 13 type of life where you understand what it is to have love grow in you. The Bible said perfect love casteth out all fear. And so if there is a such thing as perfect love, there is a such thing as imperfect love. And people without right or healthy or growing or consistent friendships, they're going to embrace a realm of love, but it won't be perfected. And because that realm of love is not perfected, there will be fears both in you and other people that cannot be ekbalo, tossed aside, thrown aside, gotten rid of, or shattered. So if you want to grow in love, you need friends. Nobody grows in love. Nobody grows in love without friends. Mark my words. I think you can make your siblings your friends. Obviously, it goes without saying that your spouse should be your friend. I think that you can ask people to be your friends. I think you should define friendships. I think you should measure them. I think you should evaluate them. But you need them. You need friends. The most anointed person, the most gifted person, the most successful person needs specific, deliberate, intentional friendship. Why? Friendships have a ministry of focus. A good friend will help you know when you have gotten distracted. And friendship will help you know when you're deceived. And friendship will help you know when you are depleted or when you're tired. They should be protective. They should be perceptive. They should be sensitive to what they should be vaults. Hey, they should be personal diaries. They should be places where you can put your secrets, your fears, your journey, your questions should go there. If I cannot find you as a vault, I can get victory. That's the power of friendship. And when friendships fail, you need to do a couple of things. You need to figure out whether you chose the wrong people, whether you defined it as the wrong thing, or whether you just didn't have the bandwidth to emotionally commit to them. I hope this is making sense to some of you. Now, some of you are calling friendships trauma bonds. Some of you are calling friendships perverse bindings bindings or attachments based upon common offense. I got whole people right now that have decided to become friends because they're mad at me, hated each other prior to, but now they got refugee camps and they're calling it church plants. The real issue is that they're joining and they're merging and they're attaching based upon something that an offense or something that happened to them or that they didn't like or anything like that. A common hatred is not enough to build a real friendship. A common enemy is not enough to join a covenant. It's not enough because what's going to happen is it's not going to be able to endure the diverse seasons of life, the diverse transitions of life, the diverse changes of pace in life. So, you got to be very careful about when you develop new friendships, how you develop new friendships, when you call a new friendship, and what you expect or anticipate from it. So, friendship failures. When a person looks up, no matter who they are or what they've done, and realize that they don't think that they have enough friends or that they don't have the friends that they think they had, they're going to end up in depression. Can you handle more? We're talking about depression 2.0. I'm just the one that's got the courage to talk about it. Can you handle more? Get it. All right. Another realm or another risk of depression is future anxiety. Future anxiety. Future anxiety. Future anxiety. There are people that are smart, gifted, anointed, talented, articulate, attractive, persuasive, confident, that have anxiety about what the future looks like. Do not ever assume that because a person has a lot, knows a lot, has experienced a lot, that they have security about what the future looks like. And this is a very strong realm of depression. When people worry, get stressed over, lose sleep over what the future looks like. It sounds simple, but it's very, 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 very real. There are some people that are tormented by the future, taunted by the future, that the future, when it starts to talk or when possibilities start to open up, if they can't conceptualize it, if they can't imagine it, if they don't know what's coming or how to adjust to it, the future cannot become a place of happiness or retreat or reprieve for them. It ends up being a place of fear. So when you think about the future, you get afraid. When you think about the future, you get nervous. When you think about the future, you retreat. When you think about the future, you shut down. When you think about the future, you just choose not to make any decisions. And before you know it, you look up and you've lost 2 years, 4 years, 6 years because you didn't like what the future was looking like, or you didn't want to design it, or you didn't want to obey it, or you didn't want to commit to it or partner with what was happening. So there are a lot of people that have future anxiety. Where will I be 2 years from now? How do I prepare for 5 years from now? Will I be married still? Will my friendship circle still be the same? Will I be living in this city? So the future should be your friend. Lord, I love you today. The future should be your friend. If you find that the future is a foe to you, where you are afraid to plan it out, think it out, live it out, prepare for it, and be willing to disappoint it on it, or be willing to be let down by it, but not run from it and not let it go, and realize that the future should not happen to you. The future shouldn't happen to you. It should happen for you. The future should be your friend. So when you live future focused, future committed, future passionate, you end up knowing that failure is a part of your future. It is. Mistakes are a part of your future. Mismanagement is a part of your future. But victories are also a part of your future. And successes are also a part of your future. And accomplishments are also a part of your future. And change is also a part of your future. And you've got to learn. I grieve to tell you this, but I'm going to take the risk to this. Now, when I make this information exclusive, you got to sign up for my discipleship stuff to get the rest. You have to know, if you're going to be successful, if you're going to be competent emotionally and psychologically, you got to know how to host a revolving door in your heart. That's a part of future management and future planning. You have to have a revolving door in your chest. Quan, I'm giving you a whole lot. I hope you make this look pretty. You too, Elaine. Nobody makes it in life without being crippled or crushed by the decisions of people, or the actions of people, or the mistakes of yourself, if they don't know how to host a revolving door. People will come, people will go. Stories will change, stories will remain the same. You will get blamed, you will get praised. You will get encouraged, you will get cursed. You will experience life, you will experience loss. But you've got to keep a revolving door in the heart. Here's the hard part about it, you got to get used to it. because there's nothing you can do about other people. You can only manage and maintain yourself. All right. Don't go nowhere. I know y'all are getting aggravated with me, but I told you I got to give you these issues to focus on and evaluate, because you might not know why you're depressed. You could be depressed because God is trying to allow you to conceptualize the revolving door. They will not all be with you. They won't all stay with you. They won't all remember you. And you got to be good with it. So every relationship you have, every commitment you have, you need to start now if you're going to heal and if you're going to be resilient. You've got to know that it needs to be as unto the Lord and not unto your value or appreciation or for that person or that assignment or that issue or that cause. It was a season, but it really should have been a seed. Future anxiety. All right, you ready for the next one? Or should I let you go? Jesus is the Son of God. Hey, Val, I love you, baby. All right, the next one that could cause depression and the next one that could cause people emotional shattering and depletion and exhaustion is dysfunctional family. Dysfunctional family. Maybe you'd be shocked or not to know how much your family classroom has contributed to what you feel right now. I have often said that family is the very first classroom. Before you get to preschool, you get to the living room. And you learn life in the living room. You don't learn life in the preschool. Yeah, you're tracing and coloring and you're learning phonics and primary colors and math and all of that. But you learn a lot more in the living room. And family is our first teachers. What happens is your mother teaches you by what she does and does not. Your father teaches you by what he does and does not. Your siblings teach you. And what happens is you have a bunch of lessons in the heart, a bunch of lessons in the soul that you don't necessarily, I'm about to hit you, you don't know is there until love arrives. That's why your hardest seasons comes when somebody tries to love you. Somebody that wants to date you, befriend you, pastor you, father you, coach you. Love is confrontational. Real love is confrontational. And the first thing that love is going to do is find the brokenness in you. So what happens is when love arrives in your life, you're going to realize what's wrong with you. It's not a bad sign. It's supposed to be there because love searches for the breach and the brokenness. Jesus is love. And so when love shows up in your life in any form, if it's pure, if it's purely motivated, when love shows up in your life, you're going to feel like something's wrong with you. Excuse me. I'm not ready. I'm not able. I'm too this. I'm too that. I'm apprehensive. I'm fearful. I'm all of that stuff. But family dysfunction is critical because what happens is your parents, their presence or their absence teaches you how to interact with authority figures. And you may be depressed around and about the subjects of your authority figures. Maybe you don't like authority at all. You don't like having to be reliant on. You don't like having to need. You don't like having to yield. You don't like having to admit that something is right or wrong that you don't agree with. Parents are the primary pillars that teach you how to interact with authority. And if you don't learn how to deal with authority, you may as well just give up the ghost now because life is about your ability to ebb and flow with authority. You don't know how to follow rules. You don't know how to submit. You don't know how to break laws. You don't know how to cave in. You don't know how to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. You don't know how to do all that. That's not a value system for you. You just live in your own lane, in your own aisle, for your own rules. If you don't learn the power of authority, you can't earn promotion because here is the science. Authority is the bedrock of promotion. Your relationship with authority will determine what you can be trusted with. And there's a lot of people reaching for promotion that don't want to commit to authority, but they don't want to commit to authority because they've been abused by authority figures. And their authority figures started in the living room. Familial dysfunction. Secrecy is a familial dysfunction. Mistrust could be a familial dysfunction. Deception can be a familial dysfunction. There's another thing or another concept that could have started in the family that's really intricate to who you are and how you're showing up right now. That is a depression issue, which is vulnerability. You know, a lot of you, at least 175 of you, are afraid of vulnerability, nakedness. You see, because you should have learned safety from your family. One of my boys is in here, Professor Charles Alexander. Follow him, the Alexander way. You should have learned safety from family. If you have a misconstrued, a odd version of, a odd view of safety, it started in the family. That thing did not start in elementary school, high school, career. Your view of safety, what it is, what it looks like, what it means, started with the family. So if the family was not the nest that created a realm or a zone of safety for you to be who you are, pursue what you are, grow, develop, mature, make mistake, if they didn't become that for you and then they toss you into a world when you're 18 or 16 if you get prematurely pregnant, or you get in trouble or go to jail and they toss you into an everyday reality and everyday world, you have no real construct of safety. And when you have no real construct of safety, believe it or not, you become something that values your safety so much that the only person that matters the most is you. And so everybody that tries to love you experiences the pains of the deficits of your family life. You could be 30 now, 40 now, 50 now, and you feel unsafe, and that's a form of depression. Brothers and sisters teaches you how to interact with colleagues. Brothers and sisters teaches you how to socially and platonically engage with people who can, at a peer level, offer improvable advice or insights to who you are. Mothers and fathers show you how to interact with nurturers and providers, influencers and protectors. That's what they do. They become the unit by which is your first life institution. Your first school is your family. And what happens is those lessons, those concepts, those ideas, those experiences, it's interesting. You learn how to walk. You learn how to talk before you learn how to read. Let's sit in this. There is no book that's written for a 1-year-old that says, read this and you'll learn how to read. You don't know how to read. There's no book that says, this is how you get out the crawler, get out the crib, and you walk. Which means that academics, education, learning, and training has nothing to do with reading necessarily. It has everything to do with observation. So then, you learn by intent and you learn by observation. But you can't learn by intent until you learn how to read, study, pursue, and reach for yourself. Before you learn how to read, study, pursue for yourself, you're only learning by observation, which means that everybody around you is a lesson. Mommy's one. Daddy's one. Grandmama's one. Sister is one. Auntie is one. Uncle is one. Big brother is one. But rape is one. Molestation is one. Absence is one. Abandonment is one. Alcoholism is one. Rage is one. Verbal abuse is one. Domestic violence is one. They all become the unread textbooks to life. And so then, because you take these lessons into life, you date idiots, you marry airheads, You make mistakes in what you long for in the heart with love. Dysfunctional family issues. Can you handle more? Is this too much? Can you handle more? We're talking about things that cause depression and depression or depressive categories. Here's one that is very important to me because I experienced it and I didn't know it. And as I mentioned last night, there are several categories of depression that you may be experiencing, and you may be the last one to witness it. There is a category of depression called success trauma. Success trauma. Success trauma. You know, I've often said that if I won the lottery, and some who watch my life and watch my movement and watch my assignment would argue that I have in some ways, I'm nowhere near where I'm supposed to be. I got a lot of work to do. But I've done some stuff, and my life has been instrumental in some ways. If someone said, or if I were to go to my local gas station and win the lottery and I got $68 million, I have often said to people I would get a nose job. I would change my name to Sean Smytheson. I would get some type of implants to change my body type so nobody could recognize me. And here's why. You win the lottery in any area of life. Family members that you didn't know come out of the closet. Friends that you didn't know start finding you. Folks that changed your diapers and watched you growing up come out the woodworks. Stories and narrations about who you are and where you've been and where you come from start to be published. Paparazzi is real when a person is in purpose. And it might not come in the form of pictures and cameras and stalkers and those being encamped around your house or watching your home and all of that stuff. It can happen on a small scale. But success trauma is real. I was not prepared for what comes with when you win. I was not prepared for what comes with when you win. I have a father in the Lord. I only have one. That's my belief for those of you that switch him out every season. But I wasn't prepared for what success would bring. I wasn't prepared for the opportunism, the disloyalty. I wasn't prepared for the envy, the jealousy. I wasn't prepared for people to be envious of stuff that I was still insecure about. I wasn't prepared for my uniqueness and distinctiveness and difference to be on platform and to become the subject matter of articles and tabloids and folks that think I left them because I didn't donate to their failure fund. Wasn't prepared for it. And I was also not prepared. I was in a meeting several years ago, right before Donald Trump became president. This is a true story. And there was a man that I had studied for several years. He's an author, a writer, a phenomenal leader. And this is right before Donald Trump announced his presidency. And this man said, I was presented with several $1 million by an organization to run for president. I was sitting in a private breakfast meeting. And he said, I thought about running just so that Trump wouldn't get in office. But I realized that I'm more ready for my family. And I wanted this guy to run for president. I wanted this guy to run for president. But he said in this private leadership meeting, I refused. I can't run because my family isn't ready. And it put me in a mental space where I had to consider, man, success is never singular. When you achieve success on any level and in any way, it automatically impacts and involves those that are in your immediate circle. When you run for political office for that, when you run for an influential position, when you become forward, visible, and all of that stuff, politics are nasty. Publicity is evil. It's wicked. And if your family is not prepared for what comes with that, you start running for influence, which is that's my theme of the year is godly influence and power and aggressive influence. When you have influence in that way, it incites things. It attaches itself to things. It attacks things. And if your family isn't ready, what's going to happen is you say, hey, Johnson for president, or Pam run for this, or I'm the CEO of that, or I'm the VP of this, and you don't prepare your immediate home, place of retreat, comfort zone for what that means, what's going to happen is your success is going to surprise, shock, blow the minds of everybody around you in a negative sense. So do not think that the arrival of success is going to always cause comfortable things in your life. Sometimes success causes pain. Now, I want you to be successful. I want you to experience success, but I want you to be prepared for what it's going to mean. You may find out that your best friend has been envious of you the whole time. You may find out that your spouse, wink, is jealous of you. You may find out that there are people who have been trying to set you up the entire time, and that people think that money has changed you or resources changed you when it only has revealed what's been there the entire time. You may find out that there are people who wanted to befriend you only because they wanted to be you. You may find out that to some people you are a way out, a way in. You may find out that there are people who are so hypnotized by your success that they can't endure with you through diverse seasons. There is a such thing as success trauma. If you don't believe me, man, watch some of these shows where NBA stars get drafted, rappers get contracts, and they get all of these new friends, and then they hit a low moment, and then people scatter like flies and roaches in self-protection. So a successful person has to be very careful about what they think security is and what they need from a standpoint of security. When I tell you I've lived it, they will scatter like roaches. They will scatter like roaches. They will scatter like roaches. When, I was watching a Bobby Brown story, and I was watching the Teddy Pendergrass story and all that stuff. And when they had millions and were in the lights and touring and all that stuff, everybody was in the club getting tipsy. Child, it was on tour bus and T-shirting and walking and being a part of the entourage. But then they hit bankruptcy and they became rats, roaches, lizards, scorpions, and snails. I lived it. I lived it, but I learned it. So because I learned it, it doesn't impact me in the same way it used to. But there is a such thing as success trauma. Okay, another one. Fairness frustration. This is another category of depression. I know I've been on here a while, but I wanted to just give you some things to think about from our live last night. I hope you're staying with me. If you're not, bye. Fairness frustration. Fairness frustration. There are those of us that are not necessarily postured, poised, afforded the opportunity to have justice publicized. Fairness frustration. You may have brothers or sisters. You may have mothers and fathers, business managers, recruiters, agents, publicists. Oh, please don't get me started on them and that. I have had so much discouragement with publicists. I don't even know what to do. It's just abstract, elusive, evasive, incorporeal. Like, what do you do? ma'am. Like, why am I paying you this? What do anyway, but fairness, frustration. In fairness, frustration, what happens is you have a person that is invested, that is committed, that is sold into, that is developed, that is committed to, that is helped to aid, helped to be, helped to birth, helped to cause to come to pass. And then something happens, something changes, something turns, and the volume levels are uneven. Hey, Shantori, I love you. The volume levels are uneven. And so, there's something about victimization in this culture. Lord, help me through this, because I don't want to. The victimization mentality, the victimization culture, where when an outcome is not what you want or what you need or what you desired or what you hoped for, or didn't turn out to your own outcome or your own, I don't know, dreams, then you become the victim. And what I've learned, it's interesting. I don't know if it's an anthropological issue, a sociological issue, or a psychological issue, but what I've learned is that people, whether it's false or not, or whether it's genuine or not, people gravitate to the underdog, even if the underdog is an outright liar. Now, there are those of us that have been impacted by things and hurt by things and wounded by things. But then there are those who don't have the liberty, don't have the right to share their side, to share their story. Because when y'all do it, you get support. I can't tell you how many people in silos have been crafted from people that announce their disassociation from me, and the same people come on and be applauding. And had nothing to say when they came a part of and was on payroll and staff and celebrated and coached and pampered and all that. But it's interesting that the justice issue is something that is a real strong emotional one. There are those of you that were raped, literally and professionally. There are those of you that were abandoned, literally and or professionally. There were those of you that experienced being sexually assaulted in alleys. There are those of you that experienced being hit and being fought and all of that stuff, and you can't say anything. One of the strongest weapons as a deliverance minister that I've seen when you minister to people that have experienced rape or molestation is the lack of their voice. Right before you get to their penis or their vagina and ministering to healing and restoration and all of that, and beauty and guilt and condemnation and the power of secrecy, what happens is you've got to deal with the authority that came to rob their voice. And there are people that have legitimately been taken advantage of that now have no voice. And so that fairness frustration sits in them and it depresses them. There are people every day, some of you are watching me, that's just like, it's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. And they're focused on it. Every day they wake up and they're like, I can't believe this has happened to me. I can't believe they're doing this. I can't believe he got away with that. I can't believe she said that. Now, this happens in divorce. Okay. When people are in divorce proceedings and there is a bias towards one side or one narration, and somebody gets away with resource or with mutually built stuff, and they can't fight for it in the right way because something is, or a system is leaned to or inclined to whoever looks like the superhero in the story and all of that. So because our culture is what our culture is, there's certain things that you can say that I can't, that if I said the exact same things in the same way with the same implication, I'd be considered unethical and you'd be considered victorious. The fairness frustration. Some of you have been in fairness frustration and you're depressed about it. Why? Because they taught you family first, but the family fought you. They taught you put your father above everything and he ignores you. They taught you, no matter what comes, no matter how abusive it is, you show up to the reunion. Even if the uncle that raped you is still there. No, it's just about the family. They taught you, stick with your pastor. Stick with him. Stick with him. No, you ain't growing. No, his voice don't do nothing for you. Yeah, she controlling and a Jezebel and tell you when you can go to the bathroom and when you can't go to the bathroom and all that. But you stay in there. And you're sitting there living, trying to grow, trying to live, all in fairness, frustration. Because depression is in your life because of a lack of justice. It's another category of it. Okay, I'm almost done. Can you handle one more? I got one more. Different categories or reasons or justifications behind or definitions of depression. I hope I've said something that bless you. Sometimes when I'm teaching or exhorting, I think, like, does this stuff make sense to them? Again, in a few weeks, I'm going to be making this stuff a little bit more exclusive. I need to mentor and pour and develop and disciple in a more private way. So I'm going to stop doing these lives and I'm going to commit it to my group, and I'm going to do it regionally too, where y'all can spend some time with me and we can ride some horses and get on some motorcycles and climb some mountains and jump in some rivers and jump out of some planes in a discipleship format. That's my new focus. So I'm going to have to stop doing this to give it to those that are committed to what I'm teaching. Here's the final one that I'm going to give you today that I think is very important for all of us. Those of you that battle depression, those of you that wrestle it and try to come back from it, loss and death. There is a realm of depression that comes on anybody that experiences the loss of anything. No matter who you are, where you are, what you know, where you've been, a sense of loss and a sense of death will open your life up to depression. Because death confronts life. Death confronts life. Death confronts life. When someone or something dies, and divorce, believe it or not, is a form of death, it confronts life. Because death asks life questions. When you look at somebody in a casket and you're looking at their body and their corpse, maybe the external part of you is looking at how they're dressed and who did the body and the makeup and all that stuff. But the internal parts of you, the parts that matter, is regretting what didn't happen, wondering why there are no answers to certain questions, imagining what life could be like if they were still here or if it was still here, having remorse about certain things that were petty and juvenile and minuscule that you could have overlooked for forgiveness or understanding. So death confronts life. And so when you have a loss, no matter how old it is, no matter how fresh it is, there is a possibility that there will be an elongated depression in your life because, watch me, you were not taught, built, groomed, fractured, and engineered to handle consecutive losses. But the brutal truth is, loss is a part of life. You will lose money at times. You'll lose friends at times. You'll lose opportunities at times. You may lose a marriage. You may lose a child. And so you need a loss strategy. You need a strategy from what you do when you lose and when something leaves. Indulge me with this concept, though. You might be able to overcome the depression, the weight, the heaviness of it, if you resolve that every leave is not a loss, that you can lose some things and it might be good for you to lose it. But the awkwardness, the emptiness, the void, the space that loss creates is a whole lot for you to live with and find a norm. This happens with people that have experienced abortion. This happens with people that have had to give a child up to foster care or adoption. This happens with, I mentioned divorce, but this happens with losing a job after you've been faithful, committed, passionate, and out of nowhere you get laid off. That's a form of a loss. And so when you end up experiencing loss, what ends up happening immediately, nobody is exempt, immediately after you experience a loss, you're going to reconsider life. You're going to reconsider life. Where am I? Who am I? What did I do? What do I need? Where am I going? So loss ends up measuring life, but it can depress you if you don't know how to handle loss. Now, in my life, when I have experienced loss, what I've done so far, and I want to say this, I've not always handled it well. I have not always handled it well. I have not always handled it well. I don't like losing, and I do not do breakups well. That's my thorn in my flesh. But when you're experiencing loss, a part of what you immediately need to do is find a focus point. I just gave you a secret. Now, it sounds simple, but it will help you, especially if you're somebody that battles heaviness, discouragement, depression. When you experience loss, you need to immediately find a focus point, because that focus point ends up becoming something that you can invest in that occupies the pain or the nagging of that loss. Find something to focus on. Don't get distracted. Don't get stuck. Don't necessarily get still for too long. Find something else to focus on. And as you find something to focus on, you will notice that your energy comes back. Your hope comes back. Your try comes back. Your faith grows. Your conversation changes. Your declaration changes. Your discipline aligns itself. All right? So that's vitally important for you to know. If you've lost anything, anyone, create, identify, commit to something to focus on. When you focus on it and attach to it, the loss is not as loud as what's supposed to be coming next. Ooh-wee. All right, now let's talk. Pastor Ryan, I saw you in here. Prophet Elaine, I saw you in here. Apostle Isaac, I saw you in here. If anybody wants to come on and talk about this or ask me a question, we can do it. I just gave you several categories, reasons behind, or issues of depression. There's a lot more, but these are the ones I wanted to give you as a follow-up to last night's discussion. If anybody wants to come on, let me know. If not, I'm going to go and get me some lunch. The name of the Lord is worthy. Okay, if you were blessed, let me know. Let me know I'm not wasting my time with these. ATN, breathe. Get some water, mijo. Think through this. Process this. Make it matter. Take some notes. Good. Good. Hey, spread this. Give it some virility. I think I'll give some more time to the subject of depression, because there's a lot of people that deal with it and wrestle with it, and either they know it and don't know what to do, or they don't know it at all and they just know that they're not themselves anymore. God plus therapy. Everybody follow that. God plus therapy. Follow that. That's where I got my merch from. It is true. Let me tell you something. You would not have a Dr. Stevenson without God and therapy. Not today. Nah. I was on my way out of here. Praise God. Yes, I'm going to save it. I will leave this up. If you promise to take notes from it, and if you promise to make it viral, and if you promise to send it to people, that it could help. Beautiful. Okay, I don't see anybody wanting to come on and ask me questions. Corey, I ain't got no jokes, man. I'd probably figure out one. Okay, scale to 1 to 10, just indulge me. How did this impact you? I want to know, because I'm crafting information and curriculum for my discipleship program. 1 to 10, how did this impact you? Prophet Elaine, you editing your notes? Okay. 1 to 10. Sheldon still. Let me see. Latoya says 75. Lord Jesus. Hey, man.
What's up, Apostle? How are you, sir?
Why you got to come on? Look at all perfect and stuff. You at work?
I'm at work.
Okay. Wait, what's going on this board?
Student program tracking and planning. I'm a agency principal.
Excuse us. I love successful people. Okay, what's up?
So when you were talking about the compassion fatigue, I was actually talking to Prophet Lane last week, and we were talking about this exact thing. So I'm in the middle of transition exhaustion and compassion fatigue at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at. And so the Lord opened a door for me to move on. And this is mid school year with the students. And so my heart, before I could even see the opportunity for myself and what God was doing, and life-changing opportunity that starts in 2 weeks, I'm like, well, what about the students? This is gonna jar them. They're so attached. They were so upset when I made the announcement to them, like, what is this gonna be? And Elaine, he spoke with me about, he's like, that you were speaking to him about it, about compassion fatigue, and how I have to settle my heart to do what's best for me in order to even be useful to anybody that I'm leading, any leadership position that I hold, no matter whether it's at the school, where I'm going next, whatever the case may be. And so I've been settled a little bit by that. But any advice to kind of bless this season, release it so that I can walk freely into the next one without the tie and the strain on my heart about what I'm leaving behind.
Okay, so like what I would do is I would start to focus, or I don't, compare is the worst word, but it's the one that's coming to my mind. The work that you've done versus the work that you're supposed to do. I would settle myself somewhere in between what I've done, what I've sown, what I've committed versus what more like needs to be done. If you feel there's a lot more for you to do and a lot for you to be and a lot more for you to help, then somewhere in there, you've got to emotionally and psychologically conclude the season. It does not mean that you have to abandon all of the relationships that you have with your students or your colleagues or whatever, but it does mean that you've got to be more committed to the future than you are the past. If you feel like the door that's open to you is God, then you've got to look at what you have to do, because here's a problem. If you are more attached to what you've achieved versus what you need to accomplish, then what's going to happen is that sense of nostalgia and that sense of guilt sometimes, because I know that, what I'm saying, that comes with having to depart a season or depart a situation. Look at the more that needs to be done, because what's going to happen is, even if the present is comfortable because of your love for the kids and because of your commitment to the students, you will still be tormented, or in some cases paranoid, about what you're supposed to be doing more. So I'd say focus on the future and find a way to narrate to those that you love why it's needful for you to do more than what you've done before. Here is something I've had to do in a lot of different relationships in my life or dynamics in my life, is I've had to realize that I'm not God. And because I'm not God, I have to realize that whatever I've been used by God to do or to be, thanks, the rest is up to him. Because God is not a schizo, no matter how people paint him. And so because God is not schizophrenic, if he's calling you to do something else and to do something more, he has already situated, he has already provided, he has already prepared something to settle the people that you were called to.
Yeah.
Somebody else next. Paul said it this way: one plants, one waters, God gives the increase. So
Yes.
your goal is to focus on what you need to do next.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
And stay in there, be encouraged. Um, I'll take the rest when I see you.
All right. Yeah, I'll tell you the details when I see you in person.
Indeed. Hey, have you started that post grad yet?
No, I need to talk to you about that too.
Okay. You
Because I'm
change.
ready. Now this next door that just opened is the door that's freeing me to give me the time and space to do it.
All right, let's go. Let's get that doctorate.
All right. Yes, sir.
All right, I love
We love you too, sir.
you. Peace. All right, who's next? Who else has questions? Let's see what's going on. We can deal with this issue of depression. The name of the Lord is so worthy. Who's on? This has been a long live, but who wants to ask me something about depression, heaviness, discouragement? me know. Oh, let's do this. Oh, I'm excited. My God. ATN, I be dreaming of the work. Now look at this one. Come on in here. I love
Hi, Apostle.
so much. You gonna make me Coca-Cola. Okay, you're
Oh my God. At least you don't have a ceiling view.
yeah.
So, just a quick question. So, it's about compassion fatigue. Someone asked me about this yesterday. How can they pray for me in this area? And where I find myself struggling is because I'm an empath, it's hard for me to sometimes navigate through their feelings and my feelings. And sometimes I'm left feeling manipulated in my feelings in a sense because I'm battling depression that's not mine, it's theirs. So, how do I sift through that?
Ooh, um, I'm going to be very rude with you, baby. It is going to be hard to find the boundary point where you distinguish their willingness, their openness, their availability, and your capacity. When you are an empath, what happens is you do end up carrying people's problems, and it gets intertwined with your own, and ruins your day, messes with your heart, messes with your mind. But here, I mentioned this yesterday, but I'm going to reiterate it because I think it's pertinent to this question. Don't get in the ring while they're in the dressing room. You have to use,
Oh my God.
even as an empath, you have to use the signs, the signals of their readiness to determine your investments and what you're willing to give.
Okay.
And you also have to choose to not be insulted when they're not as ready as what you see or as what you know or as what you can do. I'm telling you right now, I got rebuked by the Holy Ghost about 15 years ago about this very same issue. I didn't believe I was on the path. But then I was like, God dog it, I'm an intercessor. And I don't know an that is not an empath. All intercessors are like crap. So I got rebuked several years ago in prayer. And here's something that the Lord told me that I think will help you. He told me, don't be a general when you need to be a father, and don't be a father, be a general.
Okay.
A lot of my mistakes were that there were times where I needed to be a father and I was too militant and I was a general. There were other times when I was a general and militant and needed to be a father. That's where a lot of my from. So you have to use their willingness, and also their definitions of you, because sometimes our insight for people, our love for people can craft definitions they've not given permission to. At the end of the day, this is this is their life, their outcome. And I don't want to create my own definition for you, even if I see your potential and even if I know where you can go. That's the problem with the empath. The empath is also a dreamer. So what we can do is we can look at a person and imagine and fashion where they're going and how we can help and how beautiful it could be and how blah, blah. But the problem is if they don't have the bandwidth, or the most important thing is if they don't have the commitment, the dedication to something that is not committed, it's going to exhaust you. So I'd say wait till they're in the ring. Let them fight first before you come running out like this. You can pray for them. You can lay hands. You can prophesy to them. You can hear him. But don't make it a matter of your day to day. Because I'm going to tell you the weapon of the devil for empaths, exhaustion. The devil will tire you out with stuff like that and projects like that and relationships like that end up going cyclically. And you'll end up beating yourself up because of their lack of progress. But their lack of progress has nothing to do with your commitment. Their lack of progress has everything to do with their commitment to themselves. And if a person is not as committed to themselves first, nothing you do or say is going to push them forward.
That's good because that's where I am, that exhaustion space and not wanting. I'm like telling God, God, help me to not care anymore because I feel like sometimes I care more for people than they care for
No, I've
themselves,
been.
and that's exhausting. I'm
It's
drained
a weapon
in
of the
that area.
devil.
So yeah,
I'm gonna tell you this. I have got more people have been set free in my heart than at the altar. Keeping, protecting, managing, monitoring that heart activity is a beautiful thing and a beautiful space for people to find freedom. The problem is if they are not willing, sober, ready, focused. I have found in my life, this is me, that I am most effective with people at certain levels of maturity. I started ministering to people. When I started my church, I was ministering to middle-aged women, and I knew nothing about menopause. I knew nothing about chemical changes, so it beat me up pretty bad. But then I started discipling people that were in their late teens and 20s and stuff like that, and I would get in. I'm Muhammad Ali, but they hadn't made a decision. The problem is people cannot be delivered beyond their decision. We disciple people so they can make the decision, and it's the decision that provokes the deliverance. But we're not gonna get. We can't. We need energy for
thank
the next assignment. You know.
you. Yeah.
I love you.
Well, thank you. You answered my
Woke
question.
up. Okay.
Appreciate
All
you.
right.
I love you too. See ya. Bye.
Uh, all right. Who else is next? We're talking about depression. Coach Eb, you want to talk to me or not? We're talking about depression, heaviness, anxiety, how to battle it, how to conquer it, how to get beyond it. What's Munson, you're on here. You want to talk, darling? The God of heaven is worthy. The angels speak of him. Oh, my faith. Hi, faith.
Hi,
It's Shantori, everybody. God plus therapy. Let's do it. It's Shantori.
what's up? I have a question, or more so, I guess, like a plug. What advice would you give us? Of course, like in the service-based business industry, entrepreneurship, there are a lot of creative individuals who are exhausted and depressed and still functional. And the same thing in that business space. What advice would you give to a creative or entrepreneur or business owner who is functionally depressed, that is in need of rest but can't find the space to can't create or not bold enough to create the space to actually rest?
Okay, so this is a real thing because I I deal with a lot of poets and songwriters and psalmists, creative thinkers and imaginers and all that. And what I notice is writer's block is a symptom of depression. But for the musician and for the poet, it's easier to see than from a person that is like a broad or mass scale creative. Writer's block is broad. It is the halt of ideal creativity. What I'd say is, humbly speaking, I know a lot of creatives that don't have high esteem and value for self. So being a creative means that I have the capacity to see, imagine, and I've got some insight that others don't have. I got some ideas that others don't have. I'm willing to do it in a different way, say it a different way, paint it a different way, draw it a different way. But that does not mean I always feel the same way about myself. I have never met a creative that wasn't in search of security or stability. I've not met it. Do the research yourself. Ask him. I think creative people in that particular space needs to value themselves over what they can offer people, because then they end up creating boundaries and they end up creating limitations for how people can use them. Because here's the real truth. A creative person can cause currency to come alive, leverage productivity to come alive in other people and still be miserable themselves and just like, what I'm saying, living in a certain way. But creative people need boundaries. They cannot live their lives psychologically, emotionally, relationally, like Dora the Explorer. I know a lot of creative people that overextend themselves for the benefit, because here's the deal. Think about the identity of a creative person. The whole of their identity is potential based. Potential of a business, the potential of a person, the potential of a production, the potential of whatever. So they are, the whole of what they do is invisible. They run the risk of being self-negligent. And that's in a lot of ways. So they'll have destructive behaviors, destructive relationships, non-productive relationships, and all of that. So I'd say a creative person in that particular situation, if they've hit a place of burnout, they've hit a place of frustration, they need to be honest with themselves about what they need, not feel guilty about it, and not feel like it's juvenile or that I should be beyond this, or, you know what I'm saying, what do you need? And who do you trust to articulate that to? It's like you got unicorns and fairies and, you know what I'm saying, the creative world that's there. None of them are necessarily as worried as they should be about safety. And if you can't do it for whatever the reason is, whether it's bandwidth or experience or whatever, somebody else should be looking at it. I'd say, Shantori, what do you need?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye. Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Praise the Lord. I take a couple more. Who's in here? Who wants to talk? Ask me some questions about depression, heaviness. Oh, we're determined to get the victory over this thing. Who's in here? Who's in here? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Lord have mercy. Questions in the question box. You know what a question box is? Okay, first of all.
All right, I only got long because I'm I'm changing your grandbaby. I just gotta ask one question.
I just want you to get your hair cut. You can't change my grandbaby and be doing that.
You see, it's good though. My wife she gonna figure it out. Question about value, because you were talking about you've never met a creative that basically has security. So what I mean, I'm a creative, so I'm willing to go like to the ends of the earth to get the best shot or to have the best, production, right? Like I'll stand on the sea to get a good wave shot, but I wouldn't do that for myself, right? So the whole understanding of like self-value, what, like if I'm trying to start the journey of self-value, what does that look like?
It looks like considering or meditating on what will not come to be if you are not yourself or your best self. So the absence, the vacancy, the emptiness of a story, a narration, a dialogue, a dossier, a picture even. Creatives are punctuators. They are editors, they are perfecters, they're projectors, they're publicists. They do a lot for God. They're like a weapon in his hand. But self-care is different, because a part of what it means is that you have to, number one, get used to not living in your head. And number two, externalizing your vulnerabilities, fears, weaknesses, and what causes you tired. Because here's the deal: if a creative gets distracted, the quality of what they put out and produce is not going to be what it's supposed to be, and it's going to communicate a mixed message. So I think the self-care piece is, it's not just the rest, it's not just the boundaries, it's also protecting the definition and the significance of what you do, and also understanding the risk of not being your best or your full self. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm not this, or if I don't offer this, that will be misprojected. That won't be said. And the most important for me, the most important priority of a creative person is history. You know what I'm saying? If I'm not as creative as I need to be, if I don't put out, or if I don't produce what needs to be put out, history will be missing something. And without history, there are no instructions for the future, guidelines for the future, landmarks for the future. And I think creatives should think like that. I think there's a lot of immature creatives that get so invested in the aesthetic, and that is important, but they don't realize their role in history. You know, put out something, create something, craft something that will become the instructions and the map for a generation of Israelites trying to find a Canaan. You need history. And you need to preserve it and you need to protect it. But that means you've got to be well enough to do so, which means you need to express what you need, when you need it. But I'm gonna challenge you with this. You also need to receive it when it appears. Think about it. If you are a creative and you're used to being the assistant, the aide, the, you know what I'm saying, the creative armor bearer, the creative scribe, you may not know how to receive because you're busy recording. You know what I mean? So I think maybe creative people need to learn a lesson about reception.
My God.
That
Well,
help?
yeah, I don't want to make this a session. I'll just hit your line. You feel me?
Where's my grandbaby?
He just paid through all his clothes, so I'm currently, figuring.
All right, grace to you. I love you.
Grace and peace. I love you too.
All right, bye. All right, who else? What we got going on? Oh yeah, y'all to make this a real talk show. Jesus, I might need another Coca-Cola for this one. David Months.
Hey. Ooh. If this is a
You
session,
know,
we
I'll
can
give you
offline this
codes
too.
if need be. Okay, we're dealing with depression,
Yes, sir.
heaviness,
Yes, sir.
and all of that. What are we talking about?
Ooh, I don't know. I think you said something earlier, and I got like 10 minutes, and I got to hop off. But you said something earlier about that career depression thing, and that's real. I think you know this, and I think a few other people know this. Like being in between jobs was super hard for me. One, because I'm one that attaches I realize this, my progress to what I'm doing in life. And being at a job that was good, I guess, on paper, but also not where I wanted to be, that kind of frustration, that 9 to 5 that you mentioned, and then waiting for a job offer that I'm at now. But that in between state was really hard, and finding the purpose piece. I don't even know if I considered God in that waiting phase. I just feel like God wasn't talking. So I guess for me, I think I was depressed, but more so just sad. So I don't know. I don't know if you could talk to that piece in the waiting, in that gray area, because we know God comes through. He's Alpha and Omega. But in that gray area, especially with career or opportunities, it feels like God is silent. So what do you do, or how do you navigate the gray space?
Okay, some of this is probably an offline for certain, but in general talk, I think people in the gray space have to develop a deeper value for the real. And when you are in the gray, what you are considering is everything. Everything has equal value, equal voice, but the will of God is, for a lot of people, hard to ascertain and hard to grab hold of. And as you stated, people don't think that God has an opinion about how they work or what they're doing or how they're useful. When they say, Lord, use me, they think in terms of the Sunday morning service and all of that. But in terms of God using you in your life and in your story and fear and how you make money and how you progress, people are the will of God. So I think that when people grab a hold of the will of God, sadness eventually subsides because wanting to please Him ends up becoming more pronounced or more foremost than how you feel about what seems like a lack of accomplishment. The other thing is when you reach for the will of God, you lose reasons to prove stuff to people. There is a realm in that gray space of proving. I'm here. The definiteness, if I could say it that way, of having been and having done and having achieved and having arrived and having looked that way. But there's a lot of people that reach for that stuff and they're not in God's will, and it ends up having no longevity in it, and they end up in a consistent cycle of starting over. So I'd say if a person isn't in grade with their career sadness, I think they should make their prayer priority, their conversational priority, their seeking priority. God, what is your will? And unpopular opinion, grieving that the will of God may be different from what you thought, and that the will of God may be different from what you imagined, and learning to love what he wants for you, trusting that it's the best for you, even in your career.
Yikes. Even last thing I'll say, even to that piece about proving, I think there is a part of proving to other people, but then it's a challenge when you have to prove that to yourself, right? Like if you're one of those major people that you have to prove that you made the right decision, you have to prove that you heard God.
It's tough, but it's
that's
also
tough.
calendar related. It's time related. It is pressure. It's mutated versions and variations of success. It's all of that. And it's crave for stability from somebody who has lacked protection.
All right. This has been such a great time on the Dr. Matt Show. I love you, sir. I'm sure I'll talk to you later.
It's Tuesday. That means it's baked potato time.
It is. I'm sure I'll see you later. Well, y'all have fun.
Indeed.
With
I love you, honey.
That part. Okay.
Bye.
I love you back.
I need me a fresh Coke. So where's the question box? I don't know. Oh, wait. This is a whole... Jesus. I'm looking at this question box. What's going on, man?
My brother. How you doing, Apostle?
So I've never seen you, never met you. Have I hugged you before?
We haven't hugged. We virtually hugged on Clubhouse on stage one time.
And
I think that was the first time we met, and then we have connected since then.
So
you
just sent me stuff to wear.
There you go. To God be the glory. If you hear my daughter in the background,
no,
in the hospital right now, we just had her, so she's right beside him, looking at my queen and my daughter right now. We had her on the 3rd, so we're still in the hospital. We've been in the hospital for like the last week.
Congratulations.
We've been there since last Wednesday. So if you hear the background, I say that again.
How big is she?
8 pounds 5 ounces, sir.
I love that. Congratulations.
8 pounds 5 ounces, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Quick question for you.
Tell me about you. Are you a therapist?
Say that again.
You're a therapist?
Yes, I'm a counselor. I'm a counselor. I do qualified mental health professional. I work at a rehab facility with clients who are dealing with opiate addictions and mental health issues at the same time. I also do intensive in-home services in the local area with men and young adults who are dealing with opposition or defiant behaviors, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, things of that nature. I do intensive in-home with them, and then I also have God Plus Therapy. So. My plate is full. My plate is full, sir. My plate is full.
Like, did you watch yesterday's live?
Some of it. I watched some of it. I'm going to catch the full replay once I get situated. I was dealing with my family and with the hospital, so. But once I get settled, I'm gonna get my notepad out and.
Did you watch the days?
Yes, I came into the end of the days. Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. So from a therapeutic perspective, from a professional perspective, what do you think?
I love it. I think one of the biggest things people overlook is the power of forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Making that decision to release feelings of anxiety, arrogance, not arrogance, but vengeance or resentment toward themselves as well as toward others. I think people overlook that gift and that power that helps them with depression. A lot of times depression is that shoulda, woulda, coulda. Oh, I should have did this. Oh, I should have did that. Oh, I should have done that. If we can get into the position and the spirit of forgiving ourselves, because a lot of times what happens is God will speak through us through those shoulda, woulda, couldas. Mm-hmm. And if we sit back to take notes on those shoulda, woulda, couldas, we will. That's God's way of talking to us and saying, "Hey, next time, because you're going to have an opportunity next time. When you are in my alignment, I give you nothing but opportunities, and between each opportunity, you will have that. You will have another way to evolve and to get you where I need you to be, so that you can prosper in this alignment, in this gift. Again, my gift that I've given you makes ways, and the only way you can do that is if you listen to me and I speak through those shoulda, woulda, couldas." But a lot of us, what we'll do is we'll get down on ourselves when we say, oh, I should have said this.
Yeah.
I could have said that. Why didn't I say this? Why didn't I apply for that? And in that process of getting down on ourselves, that's where depression creates itself or cultivates itself. And now we're stuck and not even wanting to get out of bed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. And I'm certain you realize that it manifests in different ways, but men and women handle that form of depression really differently as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And people in different ages, well, ways as well. Like, you know, it may show up differently in a teenager than it does in the 40s and all of that stuff. And the soul is murky, you know. So, but I think God is, and I'm certain you would agree, God is highlighting this issue because people need soul physicians right now.
Yes, sir.
It's not about talent at this point. It's about what's going on. The endurance, the scalability of life is in that soul. Yeah. What's the most important thing you think you want to say to people right now?
Do not be afraid to get on your knees, pray about it, and then get up and go talk to someone.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to do that. We are here. Counselors are here. And the thing about counseling, the one thing I want to leave before I get off this air live with you is sometimes you may not need a counselor. Sometimes you just may need a life coach. Sometimes you may just need somebody to walk with you. And then that life coach, if they notice things that you may need to touch on a deeper level, then they can get you to a counselor. That's where you get your practical interventions. And inside of that moment right there, if that counselor noticed that, okay, we need to dive deeper into your roots and your background, that's when you go to that therapist. Your therapist is more talking about, okay, what happened in your past? Let's talk about past traumas. And then now, once you get to the psychiatrist level, now we're talking medication. So I want to reach out to people and say, hey, pray first, but after you give up, make sure you go talk to someone. Make sure you go sit down and just find a safe space, a safe container where you can say, hey, can you walk with me through this?
Yeah.
Can you help me understand this?
Yeah, I agree. Hey, well, send me everything you have. I love you, Brian.
Sir. I love you more, sir.
Congratulations, baby girl, okay?
Thank you.
All right, hit me up whenever.
I got you.
All right, peace. Okay. We've had a pretty eventful discussion, I think. This has gone and done a lot of things and said a lot of things. I hope you're taking notes. Y'all have just taught me something that I did not know about a question box. I didn't know it was even possible. So now I'm looking at this little question mark thing. There's a lot in here. No. Jesus. I mean, there's a lot in here. Okay, if nobody else is in here that wants to talk and deal with the subject of depression, let me get my charger, guys. Oh, this is real scope templeless. Oh, it's dark. The blood of Jesus. The Bible said God is light. And in him there is no darkness at all. Forgive me. I got to get my charger. I'm hungry. I think I want a Chipotle bowl. Is there anyone in here? Let me see. Oh, I see some requests. Okay. Let me see. Let's do this one. See if we can come up with something here. Talk about the subject of depression.
Hey,
Hi, Sugar.
hey. Hi, Apostle. How are you?
Grace, how are you?
I'm good.
Now, you won't be talking like that and stuff and
I
coming on. And
don't. I don't.
this is
I
a little
like
new
to stay
for
in the
me.
corner and mind my business.
Are you at work?
I work from home.
Huh? You work from home?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's up, honey?
So you mentioned friendship failure.
Oh, jeez.
And to be completely transparent, for quite some time, I've been trying to, I guess you could say, grapple with the idea of a friendship failing or a friendship that I thought was like an actual real thing. And then all of a sudden, dead silence, no communication, no, not even a response to a text message or anything. So it's just like, how do you navigate trying to figure out what you did to make that fail, if that makes sense? Because it's like, okay, we were friends, I thought we were quote unquote building, right? Establishing relationships. and then all of a sudden there's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, how do you figure out, or how do you come to grips with someone, I guess, I don't know if mishandling you is the right word, or um, discarding you without any indication, any explanation, like nothing.
Okay, so to examine a friendship failure, I'd start number one. So there's some core items. The first thing I'd do is how it started. Like, was it coincidental? Was it intentional? Did I say, hey, let's be friends? Did she or he say, let's be friends? Or was it a matter of us having similar friends or similar associations, and we just kind of start doing it from there? Was it an intentional friendship? Because what I'm learning is, if it is not an intentional friendship, it's going to fail anyway. If we don't make the decision to be friends, if we default, friends, it's eventually the time span on that is going to lose or die. The other thing is, I figure out or try to examine honestly what level of communication and transparency I gave the relationship. So, like, did I say what I needed or desired or expected or thought, and was I willing to be wrong? This has cost me personally a lot of relationships, because there were people in my world, from a recipient end, from a peer level, that were just unwilling to be wrong even when they were right. And the willingness to be wrong is very important, because it protects you from deception. It protects you from, narcissism, self-centeredness, self-seekingness. But the strength of that is how well you communicate. And you say, from a Kenza standpoint, hey, when you did this, I felt like this. Or if you held stuff in for the sake of keeping stuff steady and not addressing stuff as it happened or what had happened from a place of need or from a place of definition and all of that stuff. Or it could be their inability to express and articulate on their end how they feel like you showed up from them. There's a lot of people that build friendships based upon the principle of reciprocation. That's common, you know what I'm saying? But you have to realize that there are, I feel, categories of friendships where there are high capacity friendships, low capacity friendships. I'm still very in the middle with what I think about the best friend thing, because I feel like if I have to have a friend that performs better than my other friends, and what are my other friends doing? I feel like all my friends should be best friends. I'm in the middle on it.
Yeah, and I think my gripe with it all is, I'm not a person that has fleeting friends. I tell people all the time, my best friends and I have been literally friends since pre-K. Like, we've been friends our entire life, moving around the world, marriages, children, career changes. Like, that is my core. Like, those are
Mm-hmm.
my sisters. So for me, it's just like, people not knowing how to do friendship is unfamiliar to me, because
Mm.
it's
Yeah,
foreign.
you used to like long-term friendship
Right.
stuff.
I'm used to people who know this is a relationship that I want to build and maintain. So it's just like, I don't know how to politely, I guess you could say, deal with that, because it's like, I thought
Well,
we
you
could
don't.
figure it
I think
out.
what you should probably do is change the designation. Maybe they're just not friends. And you can hang out with people that are not your friends. I
Hmm.
think you can party with people that are not your friends. I think you can be social with people that are not your friends. So I think the issue might be your designation. Yeah, we kick it, but we ain't really friends. And that does not have to be insulting for somebody that's mature. You know what I'm
True.
saying? And if it is insulting to a person that is mature, then it means that they want something out of you that you may or may not be willing to give. But I think the grandest issue is, Kenza, you choose your friendships, decide them. Don't let them just happen. I don't think friendship should be a matter of spontaneous combustion. We can meet each other randomly. It can be a massive coincidence about how we came into each other's life. But by the time we decide that we're going to be friends, we need to talk. And we need to decide
Yeah.
how it's going to work. What's the rules of engagement, bro?
Yes, sir.
It'll save you, honey.
It will. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
I love you.
Love you too.
Okay, bye. Who else is in here? The name of the Lord is worthy. let's see what we can do here. Man, y'all got me on here for hours talking about depression. Friend, do you want to talk about depression? No? Okay. I am. What's up, man?
I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous.
How are you, Apostle?
I'm a man. How are
I'm
you?
feeling good. All Nations, New York, representing.
Let's go.
Let's go. I'm super nervous, but you talked about transition exhaustion, and that's where I am. I'm in a purple room, as you see. I was living on my own for a year. I had to move back home with my parents, and just the mental thought of that being back home with my parents is already a lot in my mental. My parents love me; they welcome me back home. On top of that, I'm not working, so trying to find that right job that's going to get me back on my feet so that I can move back out on my own is bringing more exhaustion to my mental. Now, I always am very intentional with what I bring out to people, so I don't bring that depression anywhere else, like you mentioned. But today I had a moment, and I'm like, okay, I'm back home in this purple room. What kind of job do I get? I'm not really bringing money to this living situation with my parents, being 31 years old, just being very transparent on here. How do I handle this?
Okay, so the issue is this, you have to decide whether or not this was the best thing for you. So let's move the crowd aside. Let's move the audience aside. Let's move the voices aside. Let's move people's opinions of you aside. And let's think about one-on-one, man-to-man, if this was best for me. If going back home to be with my parents was best for me, respectfully speaking, skip what everybody else thinks and what everybody else feels and what everybody else views. If this was what's best for me to start over, here's the other encouraging thing that'll help you meditate on it. You will, if you're 31, you'll be 70 and you'll have a series of starting overs. You're going to start over if you become somebody's dad. You're going to start over if you become somebody's uncle. You're going to start over when you start a company, or you start over if you decide to, have a project. So starting over, when people have to start over, sometimes they feel judged by the need to do so.
Wow.
You don't have to be judged by your need to start over. You can see your starting over as an invitation to just a different aspect of who you are, even if who you thought you were has to die. But step one is you got to get rid of the noise.
Get rid of the noise.
You know what I'm saying? You got to whatever you're thinking, whatever people are saying, however behind you feel. No, a new beginning is not a judgment of an inability or failure or something not to do. If moving back home with your parents was the right thing for you to do with where you are, leverage it. Yeah. Leverage it and make it happen. And don't allow peer pressure, social pressure, cultural pressure to define or judge or conclude why that was needful or necessary for you and where you are. Starting over is a part of life. It's just like death. People die. People die, and then people are born. You have birthdays, people get pregnant, and people get murdered. It's a part of the life cycle. So you just got to look at the way you're starting over a lot differently and not see that purple room as a punitive action or punishment, and see it as a place of opportunity for you to recreate your journey and where you're going to be. Think long term. I think you'll get a lot more out of this period in life if you refuse to sprint.
Woo! That's good.
This is not a sprint. You're not in a rush to whatever God's got for you, God's got for you. But emotionally, mentally, relationally, I'm not going to sprint. Take your time. This is how people fall in love with idiots.
That's true.
They sprint in life. They want to hurry up and
Or just the chapter in the journey that we're on right now.
legit. Take your time.
Take the time.
And
Enjoy the purpose.
don't do it that way. I hope that helped you, man.
Oh man, I got all my notes. I was so nervous to do this, but
No,
this is what I
don't be
need.
nervous. I'm normal.
You're like Michael Jackson.
Oh no.
I'm putting that pressure on you. I run from you. I love you so much, and I can't wait to see you Friday.
No. I see you Friday, okay?
All righty.
All right, peace, man. Okay, this has been a very interesting live. I'm gonna leave it up for y'all to watch and view and evaluate and do all this stuff on, but it's about the subject of depression. I love you guys. I hope that I said something that would change your world, revolutionize your thinking, and move you towards your future. All right, I'm gonna keep this up. Take notes, send them to me. I'll post them, repost them, and stay tuned. I've got some projects coming up that you may want to be a part of. All right, grace to all of you. Bye.